Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Two Beans in a Pod. My name is Jose.
Jared right here.
Hyping up another episode. What is this, week 4 by now?
Yeah, I think so.
It's going by pretty quick.
Yeah.
We just got done watching the Golden State Warriors advance in the Western Conference Finals. They defeated the Dallas Mavericks in 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
Really exciting. That's their 6th finals appearance in 8 years. What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know about you, man, but I feel like things are almost back to normal, I guess, Because if you think about a decade where the Warriors would just constantly go back into the NBA Finals to a point where 2 years they weren't, and the league felt off, Because I remember, for when we first won it, we were all young, and, the fans, were pretty good. And the league, they were like, oh, wow, look at this young Warriors team. Curry, did pretty good. Iguodala won that Finals MVP. That's cool. But then the 7-3-9 season, everyone's like, yo, Curry, you got to watch out for him, dude. He's a killer right there. Them threes raining everywhere. Of course, the whole 73-9 record.
And then on top of that, they had Kevin Durant. They had that little back-to-back season. They went for 3, but, they lost to the Toronto Raptors.
Oh, yeah.
After losing, Klay Thompson to injury, Steph had a broken hand, Draymond was struggling to stay healthy, losing a guy like Kevin Durant. A lot of people were counting them out.
Yeah, but if you think about it, it just took him 2 years just to hop back up as if nothing happened.
Well, we talked about it, too. Klay Thompson had missed 2 seasons.
Yeah.
He comes back his first year, and he's back in the finals, just like that.
Just like that. It's I don't know what's their secret.
It's the way they're coached, the coaching style, as well as the way they play the ball. They move the ball well, ball movement.
Mm-hmm.
Turnovers have always been an issue that we've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
But in terms of their leadership, it leads with Steve Kerr, Draymond, Steph, Klay. Even a guy like Andre Iguodala, who's he hasn't played in a while due to injury.
But even though I feel like he's more coaching now. He's more coachable, coaching approach.
Yeah.
Let's say if someone were to have a bad game, for example, Jordan Poole in these last few games. Sometimes, when he was frustrated and go to the bench, Iguodala will cool him down, like our German used to be a few years back, with all technicals. Iguodala will be the first one to cool him down, and reset, and yeah.
That veteran leadership, you just can't teach it. Here's a guy that, was in Philadelphia, played with Allen Iverson. He spent some time in Denver. We faced him in Denver, and then after that he comes to the Warriors.
Yeah.
And you can't teach that type of veteran leadership. He's been with great players. He's been in high-pressure situations. And to be able to apply that and to really teach younger guys like Jordan Poole, Kuminga, Gary Payton, and lend that experience, it really speaks volumes to the Warriors and how they run the organization. You see guys like Barbosa and Sean Livingston.
Oh, yeah.
Even like Zaza Pachulia.
Oh, yeah.
They remain close with the franchise, and I think that really just speaks to the culture,
Yeah, I'm glad they really stick around too, because not only everybody knows them, but they're also there to help the younger talent develop them. So in the long run, we're not only really great with the vets, but we're also building towards the future as well.
And you want to talk about the future? I mean, look at the emergence of Jordan Poole.
Oh, yeah.
This past season alone, he's really made a leap from, a young star to now he's here.
It's crazy, because I remember when we first got him, I'm like, I knew this kid's going to be good. And then, there's one point in time in the season where he was struggling. They sent him to the G League. Mm-hmm. But then out of nowhere, he just erupts and comes out of the G League, and look where he's at now,
It's awesome. It's awesome to see. I'm very hyped. I'm very excited to see this team back in the finals.
Yeah.
Like I said, 6 times in 8 years. You think of someone like the Boston Celtics, who were always in it back in the 60s with Bill Russell, Michael Jordan's Bulls, Shaq and Kobe's Lakers. Teams that are constantly there. They have those dynastic runs. And I feel like we're in the midst of that right now with the Warriors.
And not only that, but I feel like from a basketball standpoint, I feel like everyone around this time, it's like they're a part of history, because not many people can say they saw, the Boston Celtics, making that run back in the 60s. Or, the younger fans how, they didn't get to experience, Shaq and Kobe or the Bulls, for example.
Yeah. No, and you bring the point about seeing history. They had just unveiled the new Western Conference, and Eastern has one too, but they have the Western Conference MVP. Stephen Curry was voted the first recipient of that MVP award. He's adding another piece to his hardware, and he's only missing one more. He needs a Finals MVP, and he literally has every award possible.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think he's already a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh no, he could retire today, and he'll go in the Hall of Fame. No questions asked.
No doubt about.
And then going to the finals. Now we wait for whoever wins between Boston and Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting series there. Real physical series. There's guys coming in and out of the lineup, whether it's Marcus Smart, Jimmy Butler, Al Horford, Robert Williams. Both teams are hurt.
Yeah.
They're going to Game 5. I think Boston closes it out in Game 6, and I think it's going to be Boston Golden State.
Yeah.
And that's the finals. That's for another topic. Today's topic, which I really am excited for, is the greatest champions in NBA history.
Oh, yes.
And that's not just limited to the actual NBA players, but also just the great teams that the league has seen in its history.
Mm-hmm.
You want to think about some of the greatest champions. I think the first guy you got to talk about is Bill Russell.
Oh, most definitely.
11 championships in 13 seasons.
I mean, not only that, but the Bill Russell Award, the Finals MVP is named after him.
That's right. Yeah, no, and that's one thing I always look forward to. Recently, it hasn't happened yet because he is getting a little bit older in age. But every year he'd stop by for the NBA Finals and he would give the winner of the Finals MVP. He'd give it to them. But Bill Russell, just what a dominant player and really a prime example of what a leader should be, not only on the court but off the court as well, in terms of what he was able to inspire in terms of civil rights and equality. Bill Russell, and everyone calls him Mr. Russell. He has so much respect, and I think he's the prime example of what the face of a franchise should be.
Yes.
You know what I mean? You look at a guy like him. He played in the league 13 years, 11 championships. Only 2 years he didn't win a championship.
It's
ridiculous.
How. Yeah, it's just
that Boston Celtics team ran rampant, and people like to make the argument that there wasn't that many teams. There was 8 teams. Hey, regardless, they still won championships.
Yeah, that's still impressive.
That team alone, defensively, was a monster. Because you look back in the day, they didn't record blocks, so one could only imagine what Bill Russell was able to amass, during his career. In his whole career, he averaged 15 points, 23 rebounds. 23 rebounds. He didn't score a lot, but on the defensive end, Bill Russell was as dominant as they come. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You talk about Bill Russell, and I can't help but think of his counterpart, Wilt Chamberlain. You want to talk about a monster? You hear the stories about Wilt Chamberlain. There's plenty.
There's plenty of stories. Like, for example, that one time, he was facing this one team, and this one player went for a layup. I heard a story that Wilt Chamberlain blocked it, and he hit the ball so hard it hit the guy's foot and broke his foot.
Yeah. Well, they say he had uncanny strength. This guy was strong.
I also heard he was very quick as well. For a guy who's 7 foot to have that much speed, it's I don't know.
He's a dominant player.
Yeah.
30 points a game, 23 rebounds a game in his whole career. One of his most impressive stat lines of all time. In the 1962 NBA season, he averaged 50 points and 26 rebounds a game. Unheard of. 50 points.
I don't know
for the entire year. And at this time, you know what his average was in terms of playing time?
How much?
He was going 48 minutes a game. He did not rest. He played every minute of the game.
I don't know how. I don't know what his conditioning workout is. So his work ethic is just off the charts.
It's impressive, and you look at. There's a reason why he was able to score 100 points in a game. Wilt Chamberlain, 2-time champion, Finals MVP, 4-time MVP. In fact, he was one of the very few to win 3 in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Off the top of my head, I know it was him, Bill Russell, and Larry Bird.
Yeah.
I believe there might be one more. I think that's the 3. There might be one more, but I'm very certain that those are it on the list. Wilt Chamberlain. At this point, we're just talking about centers.
Yeah.
I think one that we really should recognize is, and you might not know too much about him. In fact, not a lot of people might know a lot about him, but George Mikan, who played with they're known as the LA Lakers, but in the past, they were known as the Minneapolis Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
George Mikan was one of the first stars of the NBA. This guy, as a center, was putting up numbers that players nowadays would dream of. He would win 5 championships with the Minneapolis Lakers. 6-time All-NBA, meaning he was one of the best in the league 6 years in a row, averaging 23 points and 13 rebounds. Of course, there wasn't the invention of television, as present as it is now. So there's not really a lot of highlights on him. But I always think it's important to recognize guys like George Mikan, who came before Bill Russell, who came before Wilt Chamberlain, and give them their respect.
Pretty much the pioneer of the centers, if you think about it.
Yeah, no, he was the first star of the league, and they don't get talked about enough. I really don't. I don't think he gets talked about enough, and it's a shame that I don't think the Lakers don't really talk about him that much either. You know, and I understand he was in Minneapolis, and it's a different location that's not Los Angeles, but again, he helped form the foundation of what that team was founded on. And George Mikan, if you haven't heard of him now, look into him. He's a hell of a player, only playing 6 years, and he was won 5 championships. It's ridiculous. This next guy, quite frankly, I think if there was no Michael Jordan, he would be the greatest player of all time, and that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What are your thoughts on Kareem Abdul-Jabbar?
First thing I thought of was the skyhook. I mean, it was very hard to stop. You know, it was always consistent. It was always like that exclamation point. You know, it was just like whenever you see his arm, even like barely just getting up and going into the hook form, it's like, oh, you already know he's gonna score. And I can't think of a player who blocked it. You know, and it's really hard to like perfect it either. Yeah, you can do a hook shot, but a sky hook shot, there's a difference. Kareem
perfected the shot, and it's ridiculous to think of guys like Magic Johnson were able to capture the baby skyhook is what they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Not as much as the regular skyhook that Kareem was able to do just because of the length. But Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, 6-time champion, right?
Mm-hmm.
He won an MVP 6 times. Finals MVPs. The all-time leading scorer, which I think is going to get ended up broken by LeBron James. If not next season, it's going to get broken next year. But LeBron James is going to beat that record. But for Kareem to hold that record for 30 years, having a 20-year career himself, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, one of the most impressive players to ever play the game of basketball. And we recently watched the Winning Time on HBO. I just wanted to bring that up because there's a lot of controversy towards that show about the depiction of its athletes like Jerry West, like Pat Riley, Jerry Buss, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Magic Johnson, of course.
Magic Johnson, yeah, because he wasn't a fan of that show either.
Yeah.
I like that show.
Yeah, I like it.
It was there were times where a little extreme on certain aspects, and if you've seen the show, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But I enjoy.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go on.
Go ahead.
No. I really enjoyed the show because it was something different, and we got something a little bit more behind the scenes aspects of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Because everybody knows when the camera on, when the game, when the players on the hardwood, everybody knows. But what the fans want to know is how is it like in the locker rooms, or how's it like just behind the scenes in general. Like for example, Last Dance. I don't know about you, but that's probably my favorite documentary in all of sports history because we get to see how the Bulls dynasty behind the scenes was and how Jordan was, and it was just, I liked it. Yeah, and I know it wasn't that much like drama or anything, but
still, it's interesting to see from a fan perspective and see how teams perform in terms of a business and in terms of an organization, and just to see how do they construct these seasons where obviously the ultimate goal is to win a championship. So since we're on the topic of winning time, I want to talk about the Showtime Lakers. That team in the 1980s was able to make the finals 9 times, unheard of, 9 times, but they won the championship 5 times in what was, I think, one of the greatest offensives in NBA history.
Not only that, but I think it's also innovating as well. Whether like you got Magic Johnson, like it was just more fast paced, and that's what the NBA is today.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like without it being fast paced, it would just be a different game.
Well, you look at a guy like Pat Riley too, because Pat Riley was a head coach for 4 out of those 5 championships, and it really launched his career. He would go on to be a member of the New York Knicks, got them to a finals. He would end up being a member of the Miami Heat and won them 2 championships as an executive, 1 as a head coach, so that would be 3 overall. So just to see how the Showtime Lakers branched out so many careers, whether it was Magic, Kareem, James Worthy, Pat Riley, as I mentioned before, the Showtime Lakers, all-time great team. And I think that's a perfect segue to talk about their arch enemy, the 1980s Boston Celtics with Larry Bird, who another again a great champion in his own right. He won the league MVP from 1984, 85, 86, 3 years in a row, and he has 3 championships to back that up as well. Larry Bird, although his game wasn't really the most attractive and it wasn't like the most sensational, for those who don't know, and if you're listening to us, you probably do know because it's a sports show, Larry Bird was notorious for being like a trash talker. And I love that in a game. you have to be able to talk trash and back it up. You know what I mean?
Oh, definitely. I feel like if we were to talk trash and not back it up, it just makes you look ridiculous. Like, there's some games where, no disrespect, but Patrick Beverley, he's a great player, you know. He's a great trash talker, but there's some games where he trash talks too much and he doesn't back it up as often. But Larry Bird, on the other hand, when he trash talks, he backs it up. Like, there's multiple stories, like the whole three-point contest, for example.
I love that story. He walks in. So he walks in. It's All-Star weekend. They do their 3-point contest, and everyone's in the locker room. They're preparing. They're warming up. Whatever have you. And he comes in, real relaxed, and he says, "All right, boys, who's coming in second place tonight?" And just knowing that, and then he goes on and he wins the 3-point contest, still wearing like his warm-up coat.
Yeah.
This guy was just off the charts. You know what I mean? Him versus Magic. It was such a magical time, no pun intended, for the league because, back in the 70s, there was no consistent winner. There wasn't really a dynasty in the 70s. You had like the Supersonics, the Bullets, the Celtics, even the Warriors, the Knicks. They won championships. There was no solid dynasty. So ratings were declining. And then you have these two young guys, these two young kids, Magic and Larry Bird, come in, and they practically save the league, with that rivalry, just wanting to be the best. And I think that's the best part of sports is when you have two competitors who just want to be the best. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And again, the 80s, just a magical time, Since we're on the topic of the past, and we're talking about the 70s and 80s, there was a changing of the guard, right? There was a land of the giants back in the 70s. And the 80s, it was a little bit more flashy. So you had guys like Magic, you guys had like Larry, who were now altering the game. If they save the league, there's one man that personifies the league, and I think it'd be a missed opportunity if we don't talk about Michael Jordan.
Oh, yeah.
Michael Jordan, I mean, everybody knows. He's the GOAT.
Yeah.
No disrespect to LeBron, but there's no problem being number 2. Sorry, Dad, because he's a big LeBron fan.
But even then, you could put Kobe on top in second.
I don't know if I would put Kobe. I love Kobe, don't get me wrong. But I think I would still keep LeBron over Kobe.
Then again, I feel like we could just save that debate for another episode.
If you want to go into it, I'm fine with it, because we're just talking about champions, and Kobe is a champion. He's a 5-time champion.
That's true.
He won the Finals MVP twice. I gotta go with LeBron on that one, just overall. No disrespect to Kobe again.
I think it just depends on like the certain like situations.
Mm-hmm.
But as of right now, I'd say LeBron.
As number 2?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I think that's fine. Will he ever be number 1, do you think?
I don't know. But as of right now, to be honest, I don't think so.
I think he still has a shot, but it's like really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Because for a lot of people, he has to win 6 rings.
Mm-hmm.
At least 6 rings.
And not only that, but he has to go through a few teams in the West. Not just the Warriors, but you got guys like the Suns, for example, if they were to bounce back with the whole offseason coming up.
Memphis is coming.
Yeah.
Those guys gave us a tough shot in the second round.
Yeah.
That team's going to be good.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like Denver should also be in the conversation too.
Yeah, no, for sure. A healthy Denver.
Yeah,
let's be honest, they were missing Michael Porter Jr. and they were missing Jamal Murray. Let's be honest. So a healthy Denver, especially when you have Jokic. And I know he's not a champion, but just real quick, Jokic is a back-to-back MVP.
Yeah.
And he's been bounced in the playoffs in the first round and the second round, back-to-back years. So he's going to be motivated. You don't see guys like that who were multi-MVP winners and not perform, So to get back on track, because we'll talk about Nikola Jokic another time.
Yeah.
Let's keep it on champions.
Okay. So anyways, back to the 90s with the whole Jordan thing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's really tough to say about the Bulls because I feel like everyone knows the Bulls and what they've done. It's really hard to find like new things that happen along the way. How the Bulls were obviously when they first drafted Jordan, they were struggling.
Yeah.
But then once like in the 90s, once they started to get
they got guys like Pippen, they got guys like Horace Grant.
Yeah.
In the second three-peat from 96 to 98, you got a guy like Dennis Rodman, who was huge in terms of rebounding and that leadership and the veteran experience that he brought. But 6 finals appearances, 6 finals wins. They did not lose. That speaks volumes to I believe the coaching, but also just to the competitive nature of the athletes like Pippen, Jordan. And then Pippen was no slouch. Let's talk about Pippen, because before Pippen got there, Jordan was getting bounced, early in the playoffs, whether it was Detroit or when he lost to the Boston Celtics in 1986.
Mhm.
and he had to drop 63 points against the Boston Celtics, and they still lost. But with Scottie Pippen, once he came a 6-time champion in his own right, he was a 16 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and added 2 steals. One of the best defensive players in the game.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a doubt. Michael Jordan leaves in 1994 to go baseball, and the Bulls are still in contention.
Yeah.
And Pippen's in the MVP discussion.
Yeah, he pretty much carried that team for those 2 years.
And I don't think he gets enough love for it. And I don't think it's fair to be like, oh well, Jordan was on the team. He's the reason why they won. Well, I mean, let's be honest. Pippen is a big part. You can't win a championship by yourself.
Mhm.
Tell me one team in the history of the NBA where one guy single-handedly carried a team to a championship. It doesn't
No
happen.
one.
You need a team.
Yeah.
So that's why when people look at like for example, I'll always bring up the Cavaliers with LeBron. In 2007, when they faced the Spurs, they got swept. You need help.
Yeah.
His second best player was like Ilgauskas. No offense to Ilgauskas, he was a fine center, but you need stars. You can't win a championship on your own. You go from the 90s, and I'm glad we brought up the year that Michael Jordan had retired,
Mhm.
because in 94, 95, there was a clear
Oh yeah.
number one
It's
player.
It's almost. I like to think of like a what if scenarios.
Yeah.
What if Jordan didn't retire? Could have they gone for 8? Could have they won in those 2 years? Maybe they would have been burned out, because that's pretty much what happened towards the Warriors at the end of their dynasty.
Yeah.
But I feel like if Jordan never retired, I feel like they could have gone for 8.
I think that's a debate to have, but it's tough, and I don't like dealing in what ifs. But what did happen in 94, 95 was the Rockets. They went back to back with Hakeem Olajuwon, who I think is one of the greatest centers of all time.
Oh yeah.
You can make an argument for Kareem, Wilt, Bill, and Shaq, who we'll get to later. But Hakeem Olajuwon just had the style of finesse that no other center could match. He had the dream shake. He had the footwork, passing ability. He played defense. Let's get that out of the way.
Oh yeah.
Only 3 guys in the NBA have won a championship, have won the MVP, and the Defensive Player of the Year award all in the same season. Do you know who those guys are?
Please educate me and tell me.
We got Hakeem Olajuwon,
Of course.
Michael Jordan,
I mean, obviously.
and Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah.
All those are the only guys to be able to do it, and that's an accomplishment.
Oh, definitely.
And I just realized I said winning it in the same season. They didn't do it in the same season. They won the MVP award and they won the Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season, and they eventually won a championship because Giannis had won that award in 2019, I believe, but then he won the championship last season. So I'll correct myself there. Hakeem Olajuwon, though, to go back on him, though, we're talking 21 points, 11 rebounds a game, just all-time finesse player. I don't like the Rockets. I'm not a big, whatever, for my own personal reasons, but I will never get tired of talking about Hakeem Olajuwon.
Mm-hmm.
He's an all-time great player,
I feel like if we're going to do a Mount Rushmore on centers, he got to be up there.
But does he make it?
Well, I mean, I feel like he could be in the discussion.
He's like the honorable mention.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with that. But you know who is on it?
Who is it?
Shaquille O'Neal.
I mean, of course. Dr. Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, Dr. O'Neal, as Ernie Johnson would like to call him, the Big Diesel. 4-time champion, 3-time Finals MVP. He won 3 with the Lakers, 1 with the Miami Heat. The Big Aristotle. He's one of the greatest centers of all time. One of the most dominating players in this century.
Yeah.
They had to change the game because of Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
You're a big video game guy.
Oh, definitely.
You got a little fact for me about Shaquille O'Neal in a video game?
Well, funny enough, I do. So, in NBA 2K, all right, I believe it was NBA 2K1. Shaquille O'Neal was actually 100 overall, and he's actually the only player to be 100 overall.
It's just crazy. He was just that dominant. You threw it in the post, no one can stop him.
Yeah.
One of the greatest players of all time. Growing up, he was one of my favorite players growing up. Shaquille O'Neal, and we'll sit on that Laker team for a second here. The Shaq and Kobe Lakers was something else. You talk about 4 championship appearances, 3 championship wins. Shaq and Kobe, I think, is one of the greatest 1-2 punches of all time.
That duo, in my opinion, it's in my top 2.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, next to Jordan and Pippen, because Jordan and Pippen, they're great.
Yeah.
But Shaq and Kobe, it's just a pure art of their game. You know, you got Kobe, working on the up top.
Yeah.
Obviously facilitating the offense. Everything making plays. But then on defense, you got Shaq over here making blocks. But then once you go back on offense, put him in the post, it's a wrap. It's really hard to guard Shaq. And if you double team Shaq, he could just pass the ball to Kobe, and Kobe could just finish the job.
I think what's always interesting is you mentioned the what if scenario with like the Michael Jordan. It's like what if Shaq and Kobe worked it out, man?
Yeah.
And they didn't break up. I just think it's one of those what ifs. Shaq in his prime, Kobe wasn't even in his prime. People got to remember that.
Yeah.
When Kobe was winning championships with Shaq, he was still Froby. He was not in his prime. He wasn't Black Mamba.
Not only that, but could you imagine if they were to stick together, what the 2005 Suns would have been like going up against Shaq and Kobe?
I mean, to be fair, too, if you think about it, I mean, they kind of would have been a little older, per se, but I still think they would have had some success.
But then again, it also would have been cool for a dream matchup to go up against the San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they did face each other in like the 2001 NBA Western Conference Finals, I believe.
I mean, that is true.
But to see like the Spurs at their peak, which was like around 2005, I'll give you that. But yeah, just one of the all-time great teams. And to talk about Kobe Bryant. You bring up the Spurs, actually. Let me move on. You brought up the Spurs. Another great champion. I think he's the greatest power forward of all time.
Oh, yeah.
Tim Duncan from the San Antonio Spurs. He's a 5-time champion, 3-time Finals MVP, back-to-back winner of the league MVP. And the MVP award is such a prestigious award.
He is so chill. He just pulled up in flip-flops and shorts for his MVP award.
My guy was just vibing. He said, I'm here to do a job. I'm just here to pick up my MVP award, and I got a game to play later today. And I respect that about Tim Duncan. He's such a vibe, and I appreciate him in his game. The big fundamental is what they call him. I think we'll sit on the Spurs for a second here. Greg Popovich, one of the all-time great coaches, clearly. It's not debatable. What he was able to do with the Spurs and have them be a perennial contender for 20 years. They won a championship in 99. They won a championship in 2003. Then they won a championship in 05, 07, 2014. That's the span of 20 years. Really 15 years.
Yeah.
To condense it. And to be consistent in a contender is just impressive because you're seeing so many moving pieces, so many other teams that were, a success. And through it all, they were constantly there.
In my opinion, I feel like they're like the NBA's version of the the New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Because the New England Patriots, they would win it, every other year, of course, and they have greatness and everything. And I feel like that's how the San Antonio Spurs were. I feel like they would win it almost every other year, and they were just that dominant.
Yeah. And we talk about the power forwards. I think another power forward we got to talk about. We just beat his team, but Dirk Nowitzki. He won a championship only once. But regardless, Dirk Nowitzki is one of the greatest shooting big men of all time. He was not only able to stretch the floor, he was able to shoot from the perimeter. He was one of the best offensive players in the game. And for a man of his size, that fall away, jump shot that he had in the paint, it's hard to replicate. It's up there with like Kareem's skyhook, Jordan's fadeaway. It's just a signature move that he was consistently able to hit. And they do call him German Jesus for a reason.
Yeah.
This guy was out of his mind playing the game. And what I respect about a guy like Dirk Nowitzki is he stayed with the team for the entirety of his career. Very few people do that. I think you could think of Kobe and Tim Duncan as guys who did it.
But not even Jordan did it. He actually went with the Wizards.
He went with the Wizards. And it's like, dude, okay, talk about the Wizards. He nearly had the perfect career.
Yeah.
He nearly had the perfect career, but then he plays for the Wizards and just... I respect it. I respect the move. He's a competitor. He wants to win. But it's like moving from the front office, from the Wizards, and then playing for them. And what your second best player was Kwame Brown.
He almost had the perfect career.
Yeah, that's all we have to say. But he almost had the perfect career, which is a perfect segue to in terms of competitiveness. Kevin Garnett, another champion, all-time great. Anything is possible. People remember that speech to this day.
Yes.
Defensive Player of the Year, MVP with the Timberwolves, but a champion with Boston Celtics. And you're going to hear that name a lot, Boston Celtics. They've won 17 championships. It's tied for the most championships in league history by a franchise. It's the Celtics and the
Lakers, of
The
course.
Lakers, yeah, you got it right, buddy.
I'm sorry, I was just thinking about Kevin Garnett because he's also a trash talker, but he backed it up as well.
Well, I mean,
Even if he was off the court, he was still trash talk.
he was a walking double-double.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? 18 points, 10 rebounds a game. But the man's defense, I mean, he would trash talk, like you mentioned, and the blocks. Kevin Garnett, again, was another one of my favorite players growing up. And you don't see power forwards like that anymore. You know what I mean?
You really don't. You know, like he was really more physical too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that time of the league, it was just a physical time. But nowadays, it's more, I don't want to say finesse, but, you know, it is basically finesse. If you're big, can't shoot the three, you're going to struggle.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'll use the Warriors as an example. Draymond Green, I think, is, you know, the same prototype as a Kevin Garnett, but he can shoot the three. Kevin Garnett, I wouldn't say can't shoot the three. He could shoot the long two, but he never really, you know, pulled up for 3.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We talk about Kevin Garnett. We talk about the 2008 Celtics. What are your thoughts on that team, the 2008 Celtics?
I mean, again, first thing I thought of was anything's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I feel like another memorable thing is Paul Pierce.
You know, okay, here, before you get to that, I do recognize that Paul Pierce is one of the best players.
Yeah. But you know a moment that everyone knows infamously.
Yeah, now I know.
You know, at first it did look serious of, you know, like what was going on.
Do you want to illustrate or do you want me to tell it?
I'll let you say it because I feel like I want to be just laughing.
So, okay, let me set the scene. Okay. It's the 2008 finals. The Boston Celtics led by Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, who Ray Allen is another all-time great. Excuse me. They thank you. They faced the Los Angeles Lakers. This is the Kobe Bryant, Paul Gasol, Derek Fisher Lakers. This was in 2008. Paul Pierce apparently sustains an injury. You know, he's really milking it. It's disastrous. It's the end of the series for him. They have to bring out a wheelchair, right? They bring out a wheelchair, and they're in Boston. They're in the Garden. You know, the crowd is hushed. Oh my God, what's going on? What's happening to Paul Pierce? You know, this is our championship. This is our year, is what they're thinking. They bring out the wheelchair and they put him on, and they're rushing him to the back, and you see the cameras running after him, you know, trying to catch up with the wheelchair. Like, what's going on with Paul Pierce? What injury did he sustain? Is he okay? Time goes on, and we realize, oh my God, Paul Pierce is out of the game. The Celtics might lose this.
Mm-hmm.
But then out of nowhere, you hear the crowd. They start to rumble. You start hearing them. They're cheering. They're yelling. They're out of their seats. They're excited. And Paul Pierce is running down the aisle, coming back into the game. And you realize, wow, what
it's
a
Bill
comeback.
Murray from Space Jam coming out. I know, right?
It's what a moment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, somehow it's a miracle. He has no injury. He's back. It's whatever they have in Boston. The trainers, they're doing a phenomenal job. He has a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And then 13 years later, he just says, you know what, guys? I just had to use the restroom, and I didn't know how else to get out of the game. The fact that he had to put on that type of charade and had to put on that kind of show, I find it hilarious.
Honestly, it's up there like the most hilarious things I've seen next to the whole LeBron in the Miami Heat.
Oh, with the cramp?
AC.
With the cramp?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I remember that game.
In San Antonio, it was 2014, the Miami Heat versus the San Antonio Spurs. And the AC unit goes out, and it's hot. It's San Antonio. It's Texas. It's hot.
Mm-hmm.
And out of nowhere, you just see LeBron start to cramp up. And cramps are no fun.
Yeah,
know?
they really aren't.
But the fact that this man needed 4, I think it might have been 5, but I think it was 4 grown men
To carry him out.
pick him up and carry him. Look it up on the internet, dude. There's pictures of like these grown men carrying LeBron. And I think that, again, I'm with you. That's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But we're here to talk about champions. And we touched on LeBron James. Come on. He's the best player of this generation.
Oh, yeah.
You know, 4 championships. I almost forgot about the Lakers. 4 championships. He was able to make 8 finals in a row. 4 with Miami, 4 with Cleveland from 2010 to 2018.
That man, like, he never got tired. He never got tired. It came to a point where I remember in the finals, he would go in and average 48 minutes a game.
Mm-hmm.
And for him to, like, have that endurance for not only the game, but for the series, it's just crazy.
It's amazing. And you look at the 2015 finals as an example, when the Golden State Warriors defeated the Cleveland Cavaliers in 6 games. Some people were voting LeBron James as the MVP of that series,
Mm-hmm.
and they had lost. Only one man has won the MVP award as a loser in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember who?
It was Jerry West, wasn't it?
Jerry West. So the fact that they thought about giving it to LeBron is really interesting. I think it should have went to Steph Curry.
I think it should have too. But then again, I see why they gave it to Andre Iguodala because he helped lock down LeBron and maintain him.
And it's not without recognition, because I do think that the contributions that Iguodala, we keep talking about Iguodala, but the contributions he brought to the team were very important. But it's just like your best player is Steph.
Yeah.
And I'm happy he got this Magic Johnson MVP award for the Western Conference Finals. And again, hoping that they're able to win the finals this year, he gets an MVP. I don't know.
Knock on wood.
Knock on wood, but I mean, we'll see, right?
Yeah.
I guess that leads us to well, before we talk about the Warriors,
I was about to say, I feel like we stopped. We actually skipped on one team, and I think a team that we should talk about is the Miami Heat.
We did talk. We didn't talk about the Miami Heat,
but I feel like we only just touched up on the AC story.
Yeah, we didn't really cover, but I mean, still, they call them the Heatles because of how they were able to join guys like Ray Allen, LeBron, Chris Bosh, Dwayne Wade. That team was special.
Yeah, growing up, I remember I would in the 2000s, I did see a little bit of the San Antonio Spurs, and I saw the Suns because we do live in Arizona, and I remember Steve Nash, Amari Stoudemire, and all of them. And then, of course, I saw the Kobe Lakers, later on, the Celtics. But then once I saw the Miami Heat, it just made me fall in love to the game of basketball even more.
Yeah.
And just seeing the Heat play, it was just it almost feels nostalgic now because if you think it's now 10 years since that dynasty was there, and I do remember Ray Allen hitting that shot. Where the Heat fans, they were leaving the arena, but as soon as they came back and hit that shot, they all started rushing back in.
I remember that. Yeah, it was crazy.
And their feud with the Spurs was good. Their first one against the
Miami
Thunder.
Oh, well, their second one. Well, you seen the first ring or the
first ring?
I'm
sorry, their first ring.
Okay, I see. Yeah, with the Thunder.
It's just that LeBron, that's LeBron in his prime, from dunking on the Celtics, and not only that, but you got Dwayne Wade, doing.
I'm glad you brought up Dwayne Wade too, because I feel like he is the third best shooting guard of all time.
Yeah. Right
behind Michael and Kobe.
I feel like not many people really talk about him, but if you think about it, technically, it was his team.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a team player. Once LeBron came in, he pretty much gave LeBron the keys to the car. And you know what, this is your team. Do what you got to do. We're here to win championships.
100%.
And it worked. From them getting Chris Bosh, like you said, and then getting Ray Allen, it just that team alone. I've never seen a team that fun and dominant until I saw the Warriors.
I was going to say, and that was until you saw the Golden State Warriors. And people can call us biased. That's fine. You guys see the flag for our video watchers. You guys see the flag.
Yeah.
The Golden State Warriors in 2015, they won the championship, first time in 40 years. And then in 2017 and in 2018, they went back-to-back with Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
I think, with all due respect to Miami, I think that is the team of the 2010s. I think, every decade has their dynasties. In the 50s, it was the Minneapolis Lakers. In the 60s, it was the Boston Celtics. In the 70s, like I mentioned, there wasn't really a dynasty per se. And in the 80s, you could argue Magic and the Bird, so Lakers, Celtics. 90s Bulls, 2000s Lakers or Spurs. And then there's the 2010 Warriors. To see what they were able to accomplish under Steve Kerr. Mm-hmm. Think about this for a second. Steve Kerr is now entering his sixth finals in 8 years as a coach. That's impressive.
Yeah. But that's just a coach.
Yeah, no, that's just a coach.
We're not even talking about player.
No, not even. So he had 5 championships as a player,
mm-hmm.
and then 3 as a coach. That's 8 championships. That's impressive alone. And to see the teams that he came from, I should say, coming from a guy like Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich, the pedigree was there. He had that type of a leadership as a player.
Not only from that coaching staff, but also the players he worked with.
Mm-hmm.
From Jordan to Tim Duncan, and it's just he had the formula right there. And in the end, well, it's not even the end. It's still going on. It paid off.
Yeah,
it paid off.
And I appreciate that you bring up Tim Duncan, because Tim Duncan was always known as being an unselfish leader.
Mm-hmm.
he rarely talked, and he always was fundamental. And I think that's a perfect transition to Steph Curry,
Yeah.
who is, I think, an unselfish leader, an unselfish player. You know, you look at today's game; he didn't even shoot that well, but by halftime he had 7 assists. He was making sure other guys on his team were able to get their shots off and get their rhythm going.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what you want in a leader. He knows he can get the shot off. He knows he can score 30 a night if he wanted to, but to be able to contribute in terms of points and assists, and sometimes he can even rebound.
Yeah.
You saw he was rebounding real good against the Mavs earlier in the series.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the importance of having that type of leadership on a championship team. You know.
Yeah.
At this point, we really ran through every championship
Dynasty,
team.
really.
Not to mention dynasty. There's a mini dynasty that not a lot of people talk about, but I think it's very important because it helped make Michael Jordan who Michael Jordan is. And it's the back-to-back champion Bad Boy Pistons back in 1989 and 1990. Isaiah Thomas, Dennis Rodman, Joe Dumars. You got guys like Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, and Chuck Daly as their head coach. That Bad Boy team, man, if people hate the Warriors now, they would have hated the Bad Boy Pistons then. And they did. I mean, they did then. But, I mean, you take fans from today and put them back then. That Bad Boy team, I mean, they had the Jordan rules.
Yeah, they did.
They had to figure out how to beat Jordan. And it was just, let's beat him up. Let's be physical. And what I thought was interesting is when Michael Jordan first came into the league, he was a little bit thinner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But because of the physicality that they brought with the Chicago Bulls, it forced him to start bulking up, and he became the Michael that everyone knows. And I don't think people talk about the Bad Boy Pistons enough, and maybe for good reason, because they don't want that type of behavior, I should say, to be rewarded. Because, I mean, let's be honest, those guys were kind of physical, and Bill Laimbeer was regarded as, a dirty player.
Yeah.
That's for other people to decide if they think that. But, I mean, regardless, that was the reputation they played with. There's a 30 for 30 documentary on the Bad Boy Pistons. I highly recommend it for anybody who is interested in basketball or wants to know more about the Pistons. I highly recommend that 30 for 30 documentary. It's really good.
Mm-hmm.
Very in your face, just like the Pistons. And I like that about that team. They weren't afraid to speak their mind or to play their game. And in an era where you had the Magic Lakers and the Larry Bird Celtics, they faced both teams. In fact, I believe they beat both teams in the playoffs to win a championship, which I think is just impressive enough. We talk about champions. Not obviously we won't talk about it today, but I just wanted to do a sneak peek for next week. Next week I want to talk about the players and teams who were not able to win a championship. Without naming names because I want to save it for next week. I'm looking forward to that one, and I'm hoping people tune in to see that. Every week now we're going to be doing a specific topic that's going to cater to something in the NBA or the NFL. For example, next week again is going to be players and teams who did not win a championship, and today is for teams and players who did win a championship. So just to give a little sneak peek, I want people to realize, like, oh, hey, that's something that's coming up next week. We talk about champions, and since we're on the topic of the NBA Finals, what do you think is, or I should say, what do you think is one of the best championship teams?
It's just really tough. I feel like to me it's a no-brainer, and I'll have to say the 72-10 Bulls as one of them. That team was just, before the Warriors with the whole 73-9, it was the Bulls. It was, the team to beat.
Yeah.
From Jordan, of course, you also had Pippen, and you also had Rodman. That team was just, their mentality was like they had a job to do, and they played every game as if it's their last.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just historic.
It's hard to describe.
It's really hard to describe because it's like when I think of like the greatest championship team, it's just that,
They really set the bar, and with those 72-10 Bulls, the level of competition that they faced in the 90s.
Yeah, and not only that, but also the competitiveness and how physical it was.
Yeah.
For example, you got Reggie Miller and the Pacers.
Patrick Ewing and the Knicks.
Yeah.
Which is another big one. Yeah. I mean, that team was highly regarded as one of the greatest teams of all time, and it should be. 72 wins, a championship, which is something the 73-9 Warriors can't say. They didn't win a ring, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think they had one of the best regular seasons, but they didn't win a ring, so they're not one of the best teams, I think.
Another team I do think of is the 2001 Lakers, especially with the whole playoff run.
Very strong team, yeah.
And I want to ask, what is yours actually?
Okay? So in terms of the best championship teams, I do have to think it's the 72 Bulls. If the Warriors would have won in 2016, I think it's them by far. And speaking of the 2016, we didn't talk about the Cleveland Cavaliers who won in 2016.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I feel like it's because we try to block that out of our memory because of 3-1. But to tell you the truth, that Cleveland team was impressive. What Kyrie and LeBron and Kevin Love and everyone else was able to do and come back 3-1 is impressive enough. And I'll speak from being a Warriors fan. Did it suck at the time? Absolutely.
But in the end, I think it paid off because we got Kevin Durant.
We got Kevin Durant, and we won 2 finals after that. So they may have came back from a 3-1 lead, but our record against the Cleveland Cavaliers in the finals is 3-1, and I'll take 3 rings versus 1 ring. Thank you very much. You know what I mean? But to answer your question about who's the best team, I do think the 72-10 1996 Chicago Bulls are up there. I think there's one team that doesn't get talked about enough, and that's the 2004 Detroit Pistons. They didn't have a major star. They had guys like Chauncey Billups, Rip Hamilton, Rasheed Wallace, Ben Wallace. They didn't have a clear superstar, but I do think they are one of the greatest teams of all time because of who they had to beat and how they beat them. They went against the 2004 Los Angeles Lakers, Shaq and Kobe, Gary Payton, one of the greatest defensive guards of all time, and Karl Malone, who's one of the greatest scorers of all time, and their head coach, Phil Jackson. So for them to be able to defeat that LA team in 5 games in the physical and defensive fashion that they did, I think is impressive enough. And I feel like that's definitely a team that should deserve some recognition. Other teams, just because I like talking about the history of the NBA, you look at the 1972 LA Lakers, who had Jerry West, they had Wilt Chamberlain, and if I'm not mistaken, they went on a 32-game winning streak in the NBA season. They won 32 straight, a record that has not been touched. The 2013 Miami Heat were close. They had 27 in a row, but they weren't able to beat it. The 2016 Golden State Warriors had won 24 to start the year, but no one has touched it. I don't know if it's a record that's ever going to be touched, you know?
I don't think so either.
32 wins in a row is very difficult, especially in the NBA, because there's times where people want to load manage. There's times where there's injury, and there's time where on any given night, it's not like the NFL, because in the NFL, you kind of have an idea of who's going to win the game.
Yeah.
But in the NBA, there's 82 games, so it leaves room for an upset. You know what I mean? So I don't think anyone's going to touch that. Other teams that just, I think, deserve recognition, I don't want to leave it like dead silent for a second because now I'm just starting to think about all these teams. You got to look at guys like the Showtime Lakers. I think for sure, definitely one of the greatest teams of all time.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking with you earlier today, and most people can, you know, when they go to bed, they like to count sheep, you know, as they go to bed. And I thought, you know, can I think of every NBA team that's won an NBA championship? And I'm pretty sure I can. Like, I did it once in my head, and I was like, I think I pretty much can. Do you want? This is a setup. Do you want me to try? I kind of want to try.
I mean, I don't know.
You don't know if do you think I can?
Honestly, no.
You don't think I can?
I don't think you can.
Pull it up on your phone, and I'm gonna read them out to you. And I'll read them out to you because I dedicate myself to a lot of this. I like to know the history, and if I don't know the winners of the NBA championships, why am I talking about the NBA champions? You know. And I want you to be honest with me. If I miss it, tell me.
Okay, so what are we going to start with?
I'm starting at the very beginning, 1947.
Oh, I mean, that's a no-brainer.
Yeah, but we're talking 1947 to 2021.
Okay.
So in 1947, it was the Warriors. Right? And in 48... What? You don't think I'm going to get it?
I mean, they're not a team anymore.
Oh, it's the Bullets.
Oh, damn.
Right? The Baltimore Bullets.
Yeah.
Okay, that's 1948. And then 49 and 50 were the Minneapolis Lakers.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had the Rochester Royals.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Minneapolis Lakers went for a three-peat, if I'm not mistaken.
You are correct.
The Syracuse Nationals then won a championship.
Mm-hmm.
And then the year after that, so that would be 50. What year is that? Wait, okay, so like
Right now we're at 56.
we're at 56?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the Warriors again. Right? And then 57 was the Celtics. That was the first ring for Bill Russell.
Yeah.
58 was the St. Louis Hawks,
Yeah.
who are now the Atlanta Hawks. And then after that, the Boston Celtics, like, I don't remember how, the Boston, okay, so it was 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66 were the Celtics.
Yeah.
67 was the 76ers.
Mm-hmm.
And then 68, 69 were the Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
70 were the Knicks.
Yep.
71 Bucks.
Yep.
72 Lakers.
Yeah.
73 Knicks.
Yeah.
74 Celtics.
Mm-hmm.
75 Warriors.
Yeah.
76 Celtics.
Oh wow, I didn't know the Suns were in there, but they lost.
Yep. Because they never won a championship. 77 Blazers with Bill Walton.
Yeah.
78 Bullets.
Yeah.
Yes. 78, because they were Washington by then?
Yes.
Yes.
They were.
And then this is how I remember that. Because in 78, the Bullets beat the Supersonics, and in 79, they had a rematch, but the Supersonics won.
Mm-hmm.
1980 Lakers,
You're correct.
81 Celtics,
Mm-hmm.
82 Lakers,
Yep.
83 Sixers, because that's Dr. J.
Yeah.
84 Celtics,
Mm-hmm.
85 Lakers, 86 Celtics,
Mm-hmm.
87, 88 Lakers, 89 and 1990 were both won by the Pistons.
Mm-hmm.
And then 91, 92, 93 with the Bulls, 94, 95 Rockets. And then 96 to 98 were the Bulls again.
Mm-hmm.
99 Spurs.
Yeah.
And then 2000, 2001, 2002 Lakers. And then we talked about the 04 Pistons. You know I already got this in the bag. Oh, no, I skipped 03. I skipped 03.
Okay.
I skipped 03.
I was about to say.
You're right. It's because I was thinking about the Lakers too much. 03 was the Spurs, 04 Pistons, because I skipped 03.
Yeah.
I didn't count. I didn't say 2003 was won by anybody, so I skipped them on accident. 2005 Spurs, 06 Miami Heat,
Mm-hmm.
07 Mavs. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't even know I said that. 07 Spurs. The Mavericks had lost to the Miami Heat in 06. That's why I said them. 07 Spurs, 08 Celtics. The Lakers went back-to-back in 09 and 2010. 2011 was the Mavs. 12 and 13 Heat. 14 Spurs. 15 Warriors. 16 Cavs. 17, 18 Warriors. 19 Raptors. 20 Lakers. 21 Bucks. And in 2022, we are still to be determined.
I can't with you, man. You're always competitive with that type of stuff.
I have to know that kind of stuff because you never know who you're going to talk to. And they're like, hey, who won the championship in 1958? And I'll be like, it was the St. Louis Hawks. I have to know this kind of stuff. I can almost do it with the Super Bowls too. But I start losing track like between 9 and 15. But anything after 16 I can name pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
I'll master that. That's no problem. You know the NBA is my favorite sport.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. So right now, who do you think is winning the East?
Honestly, I want the Heat to win it.
You okay?
But going to like the technological side, I got Boston. You know, because with Miami, they're struggling with health. You know, and Boston, I mean, it's really hard. You know, like to face them in the Garden. You know, it's just Boston just has like that level of competition, and I feel like they want it more. With Jason Tatum of him being like showing how he is, you know, and then Brown also doing that as well. Marcus Smart, it's like they know what they're doing.
Not only that, but Boston has an expectation. They have championships, 17 of them. You know, so when they go to the TD Garden, then known as the Boston Garden, they already know like we're gonna win a championship. That's what we're supposed to do. That's what it's in our nature. That's in our culture. But what I do find interesting is in the last 30 years, they only have one championship.
Yeah.
Between the years 1986 and well today.
Mm-hmm.
They have
And
one championship.
I always thought it was funny how the Lakers and the Celtics, they're always competitive on who has the most rings.
Yeah.
So we now know the Lakers, they just won a few years back their championship, and they're tied now, right?
Yeah, 17 apiece.
I would find it pretty funny if Boston just comes out of nowhere and
They break the tie.
they have to beat us, of course, but they win another title. And
Yeah.
I would find that like funny because it's like now they're pretty much coming back and it's showing like, hey, we're still here. You know, we still owe you guys.
Yeah.
We're still the more dominant team. And I think it'd be kind of funny, you know, for Larry Bird to crack at with Magic Johnson saying, we still got more rings than you.
Yeah, no, honestly. And it's a competition to this day between those two franchises.
Yeah. And not just the players, but the fans as well.
Oh, for sure. Oh, for sure. I do think that the key to the to that series and to any series really is to steal a road game. If
Yeah.
you're the visiting team, you have to steal one on the road. So, for example, like we were talking about this earlier today. Now that the Golden State Warriors are in the finals, let's say they face Boston. It's going to be game 1 and game 2 in Boston because they have the higher seed. Game 3 and 4 would be in San Francisco. If the Warriors can steal game 1, right? They steal game 1 in Boston, and then in game 2, Boston wins and ties it. They go to their home in San Francisco, and they win game 3 and 4. They're now up 3 and 1, and they just got to win one more game.
By any chance, did Boston lose any home games in this postseason so far?
They have, yeah.
Because I do know the Warriors, they're undefeated.
The Warriors are the only undefeated team at home in this postseason, which was why I was very confident that we were going to win today's, or I should say, Game 5. We're recording this right after Game 5 on Thursday night. But they are the only team to stay undefeated. Will they stay undefeated in the finals? To be determined.
Anything is possible at this point.
Just like Boston, anything is possible. I'm really looking forward to those finals. Hopefully the Warriors can come out with a win. I would very much like to see that. It gives us something to talk about here on the podcast. By the time our next episode comes around, game 1 will have already played.
Yeah.
So usually what we typically like to do is record these Thursday night. So given that, we might talk about game 1 of the finals. Along with that, join us next week. We'll be talking about some of the greatest NBA players to never win a ring, as well as the greatest teams to never win a ring. So we're going to be talking about a lot about the Suns, because the Suns can't win a ring.
They can try all they want, but they just can't.
I have to antagonize all the Phoenix fans. It's just my gimmick. That's what I like to do.
Yeah. I feel like, that's more of your gimmick with the Suns fans and Cardinals.
Yeah.
For me, it's mostly for football, going up against the Cardinal fans.
Yeah. It's fun. That's the point of sports. You want to be able to talk, trash with people. And granted, is it fun when it's about your team? No, it's not. That's fine.
But then again, also, I feel like it's fun, to play as the bad guy.
Yeah.
And I feel like, wrestling has a big impact on us with being in the bad guy role. Because, for example, WWE back then, the bad guy role was cool. You got guys like Razor Ramon, for example.
Razor Ramon was Piper.
Piper's another one.
Piper's another cool. Those guys are known as heels for those who aren't well versed in the wrestling terminology. Those are heels as villains. But yeah, it's fun to play the heel when it comes to sports. Looking forward to it though. We're going to talk a lot about guys who haven't won championships, guys who should have won championships, and we'll even talk about guys who are still in the league and don't have rings yet. Maybe they still win a ring. I'm talking about CP3. Doesn't have a ring, not yet. Maybe he gets one in the future. We don't know. He still is under contract with Phoenix for a couple more years. With that being said, I had fun with this. I like talking about the history of the NBA. I know there's some people we may have left off, and if we have, please list them off in the comments. Let us know. You can find us on social media. Let me know who I missed, because I love talking about just sports in general. So you can find me on all social media platforms at justjose_3, and I'll throw it to you, brother. Do you want to plug one of your social media outlets?
Most certainly, my brother.
Did you change it?
No, I didn't change it.
Good. I don't want you to change
No.
it. That's hilarious.
I want to make sure I get it right. So I pulled it up. Follow me on Snapchat at broke_beaner445. If not, you could just use Just type in Jared, burger emoji, and the football emoji.
Oh, did you change it? Because you used to have a pizza in there.
Yeah, I changed it.
Oh, you took out the pizza?
Yeah, I made it more simple because I also had pizza and the video game controller emoji.
Yeah, I didn't like when I have my AirPods in and I'm listening to music and like you might message me on Snapchat and like Siri will be like pizza emoji, Jared, a burger, whatever emoji, and it's like it just brings so many emojis and I'm like, dude, like just talk to me in person.
Yeah.
So that's what you're gonna plug?
Broke underscore Beaner 445.
You heard it, folks.
Or Jared burger emoji and football emoji.
Talk about sports with us, man. We love it.
If not sports, talk about video games. Who
No,
knows?
that's your gimmick, not me.
Well, I mean, I'm just trying to push out my my streaming career because I'm also thinking about streaming.
Talk about it.
You can just follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/sanfran5. And yeah.
There you go. Wherever you want to catch him on his gaming. I don't really watch on Twitch because I'm just there with you. I watch it in person.
I mean, yeah, no, but if you're not, you can just hear me in the other room. I'll just be yelling all the time.
Either way, man. So yeah, catch us there. Reach out, talk about the sports, talk about the video games with him. Looking forward to next week's episode where we'll talk about players who have not won championships and teams who have not won championships. Until then, we look forward to next week. We look forward to the NBA Finals. And again, thank you again for joining us here on Two Beats in a Pond. We'll see you when we see you.
Ella's Cheesecake.